Hi guys, it's Natalie. The other day I was checking my email and saw that this fellow named Mike had emailed me, and he was wondering if we might be able to have a discussion on the power of setting habits. And he proposed, what if, as awesome as goals are, that they are actually not as effective in helping us to do world-changing things as maybe our boring, everyday routines. I thought the concept was totally worth discussing. So check it out. Let me know what you think. Mike's a great guy. He's a missionary. He does wonderful things in order to support other missionaries to raise the funds they need in order to be successful. And absolutely loved making this friendship with him. All right, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Well, so fun fact, both of us separately know Steve the missionary. He was a missionary my year on staff with Focus, and he had a YouTube channel I thought was cool. He was doing collabs called How's Your Prayer Life? So I was on one, Natalie was on one, and so that was kind of our introduction. And then I reached out for some other videos and I threw out a few ideas, and she liked habit setting as one.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, so Steve and I didn't even meet in a ministry setting. We met at a New Year's Eve party. Like we were mutual friends. And so only later discovered that we were both doing YouTube and we're like, oh,
That's funny.
hey. Yeah, no, great guy. Great guy. And really excited too that being able to connect with people such as yourself through people like Steve and learning that people also share a passion about intertwining practical tools with ministry. And that's one of the reasons that I was really drawn when you said, hey, let's reflect on habits, because habits honestly aren't very glamorous. They're
Nope.
not very sexy.
Nope.
Goals are. Goals are things that we can go and brag about to our friends and talk about, look at this awesome goal I have set. But habits are boring.
Yeah, they are.
And they are really boring. But how can good habits actually help us move forward in ministry and in being faithful in the small things? And so that's why I was really excited about this too. But actually, we're still getting to know each other as well. So can you tell me more about yourself? Like, what do you do? What's your ministry? What are your
So
goals of
So
ministry?
I'm Mike. My name is Mike Antonacci. So this is my sixth year as a missionary with Focus. I spent the first five on campus, and so now I'm moving to our headquarters. And the department I'm working for is the one that coaches people how to fundraise their salary. So I just transitioned to that role. I was at our summer training, helping teach some of the second year classes. And so I don't actually know what it's going to look like on a day-to-day basis, but obviously I have a huge passion for the fundraising aspect of it. It's a way of including a lot of other people in the mission. And
Yeah.
so being able to share that vision and also help all of our mission partners get deeper in their faith is really cool. You know, they'll see
That's
my support made this thing possible on campus. Maybe I want that to happen to me too.
That's so great. That's actually something I really hope in the future to literally make maybe like 20 videos just on that subject,
That'd be
just
fun.
fundraising. And yes, it's awesome. So that's so cool that that's what you're doing and why you're excited about it. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that is awesome.
So fun fact, and we were mentioning this before we actually started recording. So,
Yeah.
so I had a few Eastern Rite friends in college, and so visited a Ruthenian Catholic church in, I think it was my senior year of college. And then just this past year said, you know, while I'm living on the East Coast, I might as well visit one of every one that I can, because they're found pretty much East Coast and West Coast. And I'm about to move
Yeah.
to Denver where there's not as many. So this past year visited one of every single one that has a rite in the US, because some are just in their country, like the Albanian
Yeah.
Catholic Church is just in Albania. So there's about
Okay.
half that I couldn't go to, you know, because I'm not taking a trip to Albania just for that. But so that's what I did. It was really awesome just to see like the liturgical diversity, that Roman isn't the only Catholic, and that was really a lot of fun.
That is so cool. That's such a great bucket list maybe for the future that maybe you could go to Albania just for the liturgy. Like, that would actually be a really amazing experience. So that's awesome. That is so awesome. I didn't do anything quite that cool, like going to go see all those liturgies. I did go to 20 states last year, so that
That
was
was
kind
for
of fun.
your ministry thing.
Yeah, doing a lot of traveling. Just it was me in the car. One of my board members gave me a bobblehead of Pope Francis because he told me I couldn't go by myself, and so we
That's
just
funny.
tooled around the country and wasn't really sightseeing, but I did check out every local coffee shop that I could possibly find because I love coffee shops. It's where I get more work done in coffee shops than almost anywhere else. So,
Because you're not
but I
having,
went
you don't have
checking out
distractions. So
local
and
restaurants.
speaking of habits, it's actually a good habit to have a place that you go where this is where you
Yeah.
work.
And that is exactly what coffee shops are for me. I kind of figured that that it's kind of like renting office space
Yep.
because I get so much work done like within that environment. So, but yeah, yeah. So no, it's good. So apparently you like liturgical rites. I like coffee shops, and so you're probably a little bit cooler than me in that way, but, but we're good.
Oh, that's funny. Thinking about like the origin of where I got this whole habits thing.
Ah,
I don't really know. Like I was thinking on it, but I do remember a few moments, and one of them was my dad had sent me a blog post about why goal setting is. I think it's like called "Goal Setting is for Losers" or something like that. Some sort of provocative title, and their whole thing was goals. You can set them, but oh, I'm going here, but if I don't know what I'm doing today, I'm not going to get there. And so their thing was habits and systems, and which are very similar. Systems are more of like automatic things, and habits are more like, personal things. I don't really remember much of the article, but I'm
yeah,
like, oh, that's kind of
yeah.
cool. And then I did I forget what it was called, the Focus course. It was a like online self-development course. And one of the things that guy mentioned was you should have daily habits for every single one of your goals.
Yes,
So like,
absolutely.
oh, that's kind of cool. But I had never really applied it to ministry, though I had done it.
Yeah,
So, like one thing I did well, so campus missionary, obviously your job is to meet students, hang out
yeah,
with them, meet with new students, etc. And one thing that I did from that was, well, I should just eat my lunches in the cafeteria. I'll run into students I know, or I can sit with random people. But either way, that daily habit of at least when students are on campus, have lunch in the cafeteria set me up for a lot of success. Like I ran into one group. Have you played Mafia? Do you know what that game is?
I love that game.
So
Oh my word.
so I was on campus, and so the campus I was at last year, Western Connecticut, it's actually two different campuses, about 15 minutes apart. And so there's different, like the theater and arts and athletics are on one campus, and then a lot of the gen eds are on the other campus. It's weird. So I'm on West Side campus, which is it's harder to hang out with people. There's no like, it's not like a traditional college setup on that one because it's a lot more compact. So I'm just there, and there's this group of students playing Mafia. And so I'm like, this is awesome. Like, good work, guys. Like, I would join, except I had other work to do. But the thing is, I ran into them like the next week at lunch. And
Yeah.
so from there, we started playing Mafia a lot, playing other games. Eventually, I launched a gamer group, and we do Bible study right after. It was a tabletop, basically D&D, but for superheroes. And
Yep.
so it was great. We got to nerd out. One of the missions, this is the one I pitched it to them as, based very heavily off of King Herod. So there's the supervillain, and he's very powerful, and none of the heroes can defeat him. But there is one hero who can. He finds out who it is and sends a team of assassins back in time to kill that hero as a baby. And so then the heroes have to go back in time. Also, the guy's from Israel, so it's like, kind
Yeah.
of obvious that this is Jesus and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
it was not, it doesn't always go that way. Like the thing with habits is, you said they can be boring and everything. Other times,
Yeah.
have lunch with someone, never see him again, or they blow me off for Bible study regularly, but at least like you're doing something.
Yes. And that's something too that I was intrigued by this thought about habits too, especially just because I think that, um, especially as Catholics, that we really believe that you just can't have an intellectual commitment to the faith. And so, but the things that we do actually like can give a little insight into where our hearts are. And those boring everyday habits, like in the secular world too, like in the business world, they might describe something like KPIs, like key performance indicators, things that you're committed to doing every single day in order to reach a goal. Because goals are important.
Right.
Again, they're like glamorous, they're exciting, they're sexy, like, but those daily habits that are going to get you there are not. But that's where I think real holiness comes from. And it's one of the reasons I think also too that I really struggle sometimes in those daily habits is because as simple as they might be, as simple as it might be to like commit to something on a daily calendar, actually implementing it is so difficult. And maybe I could give an example, like I'm really drawn to how exercising
Hmm.
has a really, and eating healthfully, I think has a lot of really great things that we can learn for our
Oh yeah.
spiritual life or for ministry too. Because honestly, there's nothing that is going to drive me more nuts and make me very angry than when I see advertisements, for instance, being pitched on Facebook for diet pills or those
Yeah.
wraps or I
Because
even
you
had
get
a
the
friend
results
the other
without
day.
having to do anything.
Oh my gosh. I even had a friend the other day like post about a pill that she was peddling that said that she could eat as many tacos as she wants because it blocks the absorption of nutrients. And I was like, oh my word, why would you want, what is
So
that doing
it's
to your body? And
interesting you mentioned that because a lot of we have a branch of focus that does athlete outreach. And so connecting the discipline of athletics to the discipline of the spiritual life. I did an athlete Bible study also, I think it would have been 2 years ago. And the term we kept using was spiritually jacked. Get spiritually jacked. Because, like, do you want to go work out? No, you never want to go work out, but it's good for you.
Totally. And that's one of the reasons, again, why even talk about diet pills when we're talking about habit and such like that is because those things I really feel like are like lying. They're lying,
Yeah.
and they ultimately lead to despair, and they lead to discouragement because you get maybe like a swift water loss, or but you could actually end up destroying your body, because the real trick to like getting to a healthy place is that you have to exercise and you have to eat nutrient dense foods in a certain amount in order to put your body into a caloric deficit. And that takes discipline, and that takes daily discipline,
Yep.
hard work, and saying no to yourself. And the results come slowly. Like every nutrition scientist, every like good trainer, people who really are solid, they say like you want to lose 1 to 2 pounds a week. That is a healthy, maintainable loss, and it's going to get you to these big goals. And again, this is why I see this translating to ministry, or to ministry habits as well.
Yeah.
Is that we might have this really big, exciting, awesome goal, whatever it might be in our ministry, but actually getting there is going to require the same simple. And here's the thing: it's simple.
Yeah.
And that's probably why it's so hard. Is the daily discipline of committing yourself to small goals. And it's boring, it's not fun, but you must do it in order to hit those goals.
So one connection with that, so the difference between virtue and doing what's right, and the reason I'm using the term virtue is that's a more common term within the Catholic tradition than habits. So the catechisms, if you guys ever want to look this up, 1803, paragraph 1803, defines virtue as a habitual, firm disposition to do the good. The whole section is really good, by the way, so read that. So the difference between doing the right thing and having the habit of doing the right thing. So take 3 scenarios. So let's say a coworker of yours leaves $100 on his desk. The first person sees it, snatches up the money. They obviously didn't have virtue, they did the wrong thing. One person sees it, not even tempted at all, just walks away, or calls the coworker and says, hey, you left money on your desk, or something like that. The third person sees it, is like really torn. Do I grab it? Do I not grab it? And then eventually decides I'm not going to do it. We might say that third person had virtue, but they actually don't, because it's not habitual. Yeah. They still did the right thing. And so comparing that to like eating right or exercising, if someone's in shape, it's easier to maintain staying in shape. But you have to work to get to that point. And so for a virtue you don't yet have, it's more work to get there. But once you have it, you still need to keep working, but not quite as much.
Yes, and again, that's one of the reasons I'm just so drawn to that athleticism or that exercise. Again, is because if somebody wants to get to a place where they have healthy daily habits, and I'm not going to say that I'm fantastic at this, I'm not going to say that I'm amazing at it. It's more because I've noticed that like the catastrophes that can happen in both my personal life and in ministry when I don't have good habits. Because I mentioned I was traveling around for 20 different states this past year, which means that I every day had a different routine. Every day was doing different things and everything. And I think it's really important that I try to look at explanations but not excuse my behavior. So I'm not going to say like, oh, like if it had been greater priorities for me, like I would have exercised every day. I would have found a way to make it happen. But I was like, oh no, I'm just going to swing by McDonald's and pick something up, even though I know it's terrible for me. Yeah. And those things have very real consequences. For instance, in my personal life, by not eating healthfully, by not exercising every day, and it doesn't make a difference right away. I think this is one of the reasons why it's so tempting. It's not going to introduce catastrophe into your life right away, but over the slow course of time, it's going to start spiraling down. And so, and same thing in ministry.
Yeah.
So, both for the good and for the bad, is that those daily small routines, those daily choices and habits, like really, really take you either to really great places or really bad places. And the older I get, and hopefully wiser, like I have a long way to go on that,
Fair enough.
um, but but I've really just come to appreciate that that the people whose lives are stable, who have those daily habits, who've committed themselves to those routines, have accomplished so much more than than a lot of the people I know who like set those huge, big, flashy goals, but never actually get there because they haven't structured their lives, their in both their personal lives and their ministries in order to get there. And so, and I've experienced that in many different ways in my life. So now I'm trying to get into those routines. I'm trying to get into those habits because I know that'll take me to those big goals.
Absolutely. Well, like one example I thought of for my own life in that is not taking breaks. And I think that's a huge temptation in ministry, is especially if you see the importance of what you're doing. And so I need to keep doing more. And the danger of that is that's not healthy for you, and that leads to burnout.
Yes.
So it wasn't until really my second year as a missionary I sort of started caring about holy leisure, but my third year especially, I actually had accountability partners to check in to make sure I'm taking breaks, which is not normally a thing you would think of for accountability partners. But so they had to ask, did you take
Yeah.
a break? Did you secretly sneak work into your break? And was your break actually life-giving, or was it just mindless scrolling of Facebook, which is not great?
Yes, yeah, and that's because do you know what? Here at the Ezra Project, one of the things that I know that I get very excited about is finding practical tools and showing how they can impact ministry in a really practical way. But one of the things that I know that when I've talked to people is that they can almost get turned off by is being like, oh, you're talking about business, you're like ministry
Yeah.
isn't business. And the thing, not knowing that I completely agree with them, that ministry is not
There are
business.
some things that are helpful and other things that are not, from business to
Exactly.
ministry.
Exactly. And that's why I love looking at practical tools and seeing how our saints in tradition have like used them in order to like move things forward. But all of that though that I'm saying is that holy leisure that you're talking
Yeah.
about, like that, and this is where just ministry can never be business, is that God created us for rest
Yeah.
at least once a week. That Sabbath day is a really big deal, and I keep learning that the hard way. And so, because there was a period, one of the reasons I even started the Ezra Project was because about 3-ish years ago, when I was working 6 jobs at the same time. One was a full-time
That's a
ministry. I
lot.
had five jobs on the side because I was trying to pay off my grad school loans. And it was 12 to 16 hours a day for 7 days a week for months and
Yikes.
months and months and months on end. And what's really difficult about something like that is, I'm a strong, independent woman. Like, I can like handle whatever. And I didn't realize how thin I was being worn until literally it was too late and you reach that breaking point. And that can be such a temptation in ministry, because you said like those daily habits and our goals. Our daily habits, we should have them lined up for ministry, but for our personal life as well. Like what are our end goals, but for faith, for family, for our personal health, for our finances. I would even argue that we should have goals for our dreams. Like,
Yeah.
if you're going to go to Albania someday, like, having like,
A
like
way to
writing
make it
some things
happen.
like that down. Yeah,
So
you
it's
do. And like, yeah. And your ministry goals, and if you're a volunteer for ministry, then you have professional goals because you're actually working
so
a
it's
secular
interesting.
job.
As you've been
Yeah.
talking, I've been thinking of the missionaries of charity. Actually, like the way they structured their day has
Yeah.
so much prayer in it. Like
Right.
people could look at that and say, well, you're not actually doing what you're supposed to do. Mother Teresa, why are you not serving the poor as much? But actually they were more fruitful when they added more prayer to it. Or the Sisters of Life, another
Yes.
religious order like that, who they have, I don't know, it's like at least 2 full holy hours a day. Like it's a lot of
Yeah.
prayer, and they're also doing tremendous pro-life work.
Yeah, but when prayer's done right, it is restful.
Yep.
And my spiritual director chewed me out last week about this, which is
Good.
why I
It's good to
keep
have
him
that.
around. Yeah. But I was talking about because my one habit that I have been able to keep consistently since my big reconversion has been daily prayer. And so like I might drop exercising, I might drop eating healthfully, I might drop a lot of other things, but through the grace of God, that's been the one thing that has stayed very consistently. But but again, going back to the exercising analogies, but sometimes when I show up for prayer, it would be kind of like me showing up to the gym and jumping on an elliptical and reading a magazine the whole time.
Okay.
I'm there,
Yep.
but I'm distracted. I'm not present. And so my spiritual director is just chewing me out. He's like, prayer is an encounter with God. Like, and who is God? That he breathes life back into us. That he is love and peace. Like peace comes from him. And he's the one who created our hearts for rest, and encountering him in that moment, in that prayer every single day, like is going to rejuvenate us, is going to bring that rest. And I really think that the most important habit that anybody should make, the number one priority should be daily prayer.
Yeah.
because it'll give you the strength, both intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, in order to start moving maybe towards building other habits.
Have
So,
you read Leisure, the Basis of Culture by Joseph
on
Pieper?
my bookshelf, I've been intending to. It's
So
one
an
of the ones
interesting
that
point
people
he
have been
brings
telling
up
me are
is
so
that rest is ordered towards worship.
good. Ooh.
And so that the holy part of holy leisure. So our
Yeah.
rest, recreation is a recreating of us. And so our
Mm.
prayer should renew us. The things that we do in our free time should renew us. So some things are distractions, they're amusement, but they're not so much leisure. Which is a
Yeah.
point he doesn't get into a ton, but like people I've talked to who've read that, they've gotten into that. He goes more of just the rest worship connection, which is cool. So
Oh,
book list, people should read
it
it.
is. It is. It's on my list. I need to just sit down again. So many
So
people have recommended it, and that's just one of the habits that I think good ministers need to integrate into their day. But
because
like, and even making a list of being like, what are our goals? But what are the daily habits that could get me there? And
it should be something
that's
you can do rather than something you think you should do. Because
yeah,
can do, I was talking with a
yeah,
friend of mine about this, like, hey, I put together a little very short guide to habit setting, and we'll have
yeah,
the link in the description. I'm like, hey guys, what should I include in it? And he said a piece of advice he heard was, your habits, really you should probably only set one at a time. And you should look at it and it should be so laughably easy you think there's no way I can fail. And it's going to be a lot harder than you expect.
yes,
So if it's
yeah,
daily prayer, you're like, I'm going to pray for 15 minutes and that's it. And you're like,
yeah,
there's no possible way I won't have 15 minutes in a given day. And then you try it and you're like, wow, this is hard. And so you have to wait until that gets solid. And then great, now I can add something else. I can add more prayer or a different habit, but you only do one at a time, maybe two if you're like really super productive. But if you
exactly.
spread yourself too thin, you don't do any of them. And
And that's something I've noticed like trips me up a lot in my personal life, but that I've observed in a lot of my peers in ministry. And my theory on why this happens is that because people have really big, beautiful hearts, and that they recognize that there's a huge need out there, and they're like, I will sacrifice, I will make this happen.
yep,
I just have to work harder.
I am the savior is really what that's saying.
And so and what's beautiful about it is that it comes from a deep place of love and a deep place to serve, and I think that's wonderful. But where we struggle is when we're not honest about the time and the resources that we have,
Mm,
and especially that time, because and this is something, because I'm back in my my home place is at Grants Pass, Oregon, and I'm here only for a couple more weeks again before I head back out on the road. And so I've had a chance to establish a routine, and it's been something that that I really again remembered as being like, okay, so I have these big goals for a daily routine, and it takes me like 4.5 hours to get through my morning routine, and being
Wow.
and because I'm not being honest with like, okay, so if I want to work out, because my priorities in the morning is that I'm going to work out, I'm going to pray. I really would love to get to daily mass, and I'm going to eat something healthy, and so do it and put myself together so that like I can go out for the day. And so, but I have such big commitments with all of those that by the time like I'm up at like 5 in the morning, and I'm not even ready until it's 9 to like
Yep.
actually get started at work. And it's something like that too, is that okay, if I have those big commitments, if I want to work out like that, if I want to take that much time for prayer, then I also need to be equally as honest in my goals for Ezer. So what is actually accomplishable in an 8 to 10 hour workday? And so because like we were talking holy leisure, like what is actually can be accomplished, and what are the habits I need to establish that are going to get me there?
So this reminds me of a thing from St. Ignatius of Loyola, where whenever there's a need and you see it, you ask two questions. Is God, or can I serve this need? Sometimes you can't, in which case you end. And then if I can, is God calling me to serve this need?
Yes.
Because just because there's a need doesn't mean it's me to do that.
Yes. And again, that's where ministry is different from business too, is that I really believe that when we're setting habits, or when we're setting goals, or when we're setting those things that we need to do during the day, that's why prayer is so important, is going back and being like, okay, Lord, what do you want me to accomplish? Like, what is your goal? Because I really think he's going to push us very hard. He's going to really challenge us. But he's the one who created the 24-hour day.
Right.
He's the one who created
I just thought of something.
He knows what we can accomplish. He knows what we can do. He's not going to ask us to do things that are impossible for us. He might multiply our efforts, but...
So a priest said this when I was being trained to be a team director for Focus. We had a little retreat day, and the priest said, God's given you enough time every day to do everything he wants you to do. So if you don't have enough time, it means you're doing something he doesn't want.
Yes. Oh, I have learned that the hard way so many times. And again, it comes from a place where we want to love, where we want to be able to meet this need, but it's actually not true humility.
Yeah. So 2 books I just thought of on that, and I didn't even think of these ahead of time. So Margin, and I can't remember who it's by, but just look it up. It's about having space in your schedule. And I'm pretty sure that one comes from a Christian perspective, but the guy's a psychologist. And then the other book is Boundaries by Cloud and Townsend. They're both psychologists, and they're also coming at it from a Christian perspective. And they're good books for anyone's formation, but especially in ministry, you should set good boundaries, because otherwise your schedule is going to get trampled and you're going to be pulled too thin. As far as like good resources for habits specifically, Power of Habit is like the book. If you see a business blog post about habits, it's going to mention The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. That's it. So it talks about, how do habits work? Like a lot of the research that's been done into habit formation, the habit loops in the brain, all of that stuff. And then as far as Catholic stuff, which I think your viewers, especially my viewers especially, are going to want that. Catechism, starting at paragraph 1803. So slight tangent. We were talking about this earlier. Do you know the structure of the catechism and how the 4 parts fit together?
Do you know what? Go for it.
Great. So part 1 is God's reaching out to us. And so what is the content of what he's revealed about himself? So that's the creed. Part 2 is sacrament. So God bringing himself to us and we receive him in that. 3 and 4 is then us going back out. Part 3 is morality. So how do we respond to God in that sense? And so virtues come into that section. Part 4 is on prayer. How do we respond to God? And then Thomas Aquinas in the Summa follows a similar thing. I think a lot of people, their stereotype about a Catholic thing is going to be, here's a list of things to not do or you go to hell. But when you start with the catechism, you start with Aquinas, that actually begins with God and God's love for us. And it's not till like later on that we start talking about virtue and vice, but even in that, it's the context of what is our destiny when that is heaven.
Yeah.
And then therefore, how do we get, live up to that? How do we respond to God's love in that? Some things lead us closer, some things don't.
Yeah.
So Summa Part 2 would be, if someone wants to just jump there, find the section on human acts, virtues, and vices. There's like 3 sections. It's a lot. It's Aquinas. I mean, take your time. But start with the catechism first. That Aquinas is the one you go to when you have more questions, and he goes like super in depth. It's awesome. But
Aquinas is great, but you have to like read every single word. He's so intentional about everything that he says. Not a single word is wasted. It's very impressive, his genius, and he's very insightful on things, for instance, like habit. And that again is just where I get just so excited in finding, like you mentioned, The Power of Habit, which is a secular book. You mentioned Boundaries, which is a secular book. And I just get so excited when I see that the things that these people are talking about are actually found in the truth of the faith and in our tradition. Like, these are not new discoveries. These are things that actually the saints have been using for centuries.
Therese of Lisieux is a good modern day example of, these are little things that don't seem like they have a huge impact, but I'm going to do them with love, letting love be the motive. I'm not just doing it just because, I'm doing it because I love God. And that's, I think, another distinction, ministry versus business. I mean, not that the business thing is bad, but bringing the fullness in of your motive is love.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's something too that, God just keeps kicking my butt on all sorts of other things too. And so, but just being faithful in the small things. And how important that is, and that is just really where that real holiness comes down to. And here too, I just think again where ministry is different from business is because God is going to use ministry. He's going to use these disciplines, which is actually, I would think, also a type of fasting, like every single day. And he's going to start using that to transform and change our hearts. And so in which, again, if our habits, if they're lined up because we are actually uniting our will to his, if we are turning and prioritizing important things like our personal faith and prayer life, like our families, like taking care of the gift of our bodies that he has given to us, and ministry, but he's going to use these things in order to speak his love and his will, and like you said, like our destiny to our hearts. Like these things will reveal more and more, not just him, but who we are in him.
Yeah.
And that's exciting. So I get pumped about that.
So key takeaways for everybody. Pick a habit, one habit, do it. It's going to be harder than you think. And then when it's easy, if it actually might not ever become easy, but then you can add another one later. You can slowly grow it. This is slightly unrelated. Hang on, I'm going to pull up. There's this app I have on my phone. There's a lot of habit setting apps out there. I mean, some of them are probably like more robust than the one that I use, but mine turns it into a little role playing game. So like, there's my guy. You level up by doing your habits, your good habits, and you take damage and you can die if you do bad habits. So I find it more motivating. I'm sure other ones are, they have more features, but I don't care because this actually gets me to do what I'm supposed to do. So the best tool is the one you actually use. And that's true of pretty much anything. Tools serve you, you don't serve them.
Yeah, so true. So true. That's awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, thanks for inviting me to like come and share and talk about this. This has actually been really fun.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. Despite our technological difficulties earlier.
Yeah, no, hopefully nobody sees that we were Skype shutting down multiple times, and it actually cruised along pretty good. I'm pretty excited about that. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I will definitely be putting a link for my description so people can find your page, and then I'm sure vice versa. So also everybody, there will be my little short guide for habit setting. There'll be a link for that. So if you want a brief summary of everything we talked about, it's like 7 pages long because I want you to actually like read it and do it right then, because the too much delay between the reading and the action, it just gets lost.
Absolutely. And likewise too, always feel free to reach out to us at the Ezra Project, because one of the things, habit setting is hard and it's grinding. And so we just want to be able to like just keep encouraging you. Like, you can do this, and maybe chew you out if you set too big of habits. And
Yep.
so like pull you back a little bit so you can actually be successful. We want you to be successful. So,
And I think God does too. You know,
yeah.
if he's calling you to a ministry, he wants to work through you. He doesn't want, actually, it is possible that he does want you to completely fail and then use that suffering for something beautiful. So we don't want to neglect that, but also we don't want to necessarily over spiritualize it. He is calling you to a thing for a purpose. Hang on, my prayer journal is not close by, but are you familiar with the Cardinal Newman quote about God has called me for some definite purpose? He
No.
says, I will find it. Hang on, I have a prayer card that has it on it. I'm just going to read the whole thing. It's pretty cool. So God was all complete, all blessed in himself, but it was his will to create a world for his glory. He is almighty and might have done all things himself, but it has been his will to bring about his purposes by the beings he created. We are all created to his glory. We are all created to do his will. I am created to do something or to be something for which no one else is created. I have a place in God's counsels, in God's world, which no one else has. Whether I be rich or poor, despised or esteemed by man, God knows me and calls me by my name. God has created me to do him some definite service. He has committed some work to me, which he has not committed to another. I have my mission. I may never know it in this life, but I shall be told it in the next. Somehow I am necessary for his purposes, as necessary in my place as an archangel in his. If indeed I fail, he can raise another, as he could make stones children of Abraham. Yet I have a part in this great work. I am a link in a chain, a bond of connection between persons. He has not created me for naught. I shall do good. I shall do his work. I shall be an angel of peace, a preacher of truth in my own place, while not intending it, if I do but keep his commandments and serve him in my calling. Therefore I will trust him. Wherever I am, I can never be thrown away. If I am in sickness, my sickness may serve him. In perplexity, my perplexity may serve him. If I am in sorrow, my sorrow may serve him. My sickness or perplexity or sorrow may be necessary causes of some great end which is quite beyond me. He does nothing in vain. He may prolong my life, he may shorten it. He knows what he is about. He may take away my friends. He may throw me among strangers. He may make me feel desolate, make my spirit sink, hide the future from me. Still he knows what he is about. Yeah. I am as necessary in my place as an archangel in his. Like, that can be your call for that ministry. You don't necessarily know what that place is, but it's still there.